Great. So welcome everyone to our midweek time this week. And this week I'm being joined by Gary, who's one of our church family. And we're just going to chat together about what happens when the struggles of life meet the realities of the gospel, what happens when we go through suffering, the hardships we live through, and how we can keep encouraging one another as a church family together. So I'm going to ask Gary some questions about what's been going on for him, and we'll talk through that together. So Gary, thanks so much for joining me. It's lovely to see you. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what's happened to you over the past year or so?
Okay, yes, sure. Hi, everyone. And so if for a minute, shall we go back to life before COVID was a thing?
Great.
So back to December in 2019. So early December 2019, I was in an accident. I was struck by a car, and I then ended up being put into a coma, going into hospital. I had a severe brain trauma, and there's a few weeks that have gone that I don't know what happened. I've got no memories of what happened or around that time at all. I went into hospital, and then was in intensive care, went onto a ward, and then after that, thankfully I did sort of begin to recover well, and then went into rehab, and then was discharged in February to get back into life again, to find my way back into life, to continue to recover. And then a few weeks later, COVID strikes, and we're into lockdown, and that's really been the story prior to COVID and then the last year, really, that's been sort of what's happened to me.
Gosh, that sounds really tough. Those few weeks of not knowing anything that was going on, and then having to go through all that rehab, and then COVID hitting. That's really tough. So in that tough time, through those sufferings, how have you seen God at work through your suffering?
Okay, well, there's certainly been lots I can say about that. I think what I would say first and foremost is the love, care and support that I've received from so many folks. So that's family and friends. That's both my sort of my physical family, if you like, and my church family, and my friends, and also the prayers of my brothers and sisters in Christ too. And I think that that people love you and care for you, but when you actually experience it, it's kind of takes it sort of to a different place, really. It's not that you don't know it or think it, but it's kind of when you experience it in that way, it's great. And in many ways, I think certainly my brothers and sisters in Christ have embodied the love of Christ to me in very many ways.
That's wonderful to hear. But I'm guessing that life is still hard. So in what way is life still hard right now?
I think that actually one other thing I would say on what you just said, actually, because I was just sort of checking through some thoughts I made. What I do also want to say is that the medical staff, I think, that cared for me also were part of what God did for me, and I experienced of His work through what I went through. So yeah, certainly the medical staff. I think also that every morning I get up and I want to spend time with Him. Every morning since I've been sort of able to sort of understand what happened to me, then that's been the case. And that's really not because of me, that's because of Him and the work that He's doing in me. And also I've got a greater assurance than ever that my faith is real, and that I'll be with Him one day. Because that's kind of if it can go through what I've been through and still be there and still be strong and still keep me going, then it's real.
Yeah. Wonderful.
But yeah, life is still hard, for sure. I'm trying to deal with a lot all at the same time. I mean, brain trauma is tough and it's hard to get over. COVID is really hard. Everybody knows that. And if you put both those two things together at the same time, that's a considerable challenge. And I feel overwhelmed at times, for sure. And I think also that to kind of add on to that, there is a spiritual warfare that I think we know about, but that when you add that, that's kind of part of the kind of the struggles as well, is that as well as the physical and psychological stuff going on, there's a spiritual element to it too. one of the things that I do struggle with is I'm quite a rational person, as you probably know, Emily. I think a lot about things, and I like to understand things, and that's just the way that I am. And I don't just kind of go through life thinking, oh, I don't really care about that, I don't understand that. I'll try and find out. I'll try and know what things are about and what they mean. But there's so much that I don't understand about what's been happening to me. Why has it happened? What does it mean? What's going to happen to me? What should I be learning? I don't have clear answers to a lot of that stuff. I don't understand a lot of the things that are going on, and that for a rational person like me is quite a struggle. My emotions and thoughts don't often align with what I know to be true. That's a little bit, I think, of the spiritual sort of battle that goes on, but I know a lot of things are true and I don't doubt them, but I don't feel it and experience it in ways that I would like to, that I feel it would be kind of really good if I could. And that's a little bit disturbing at times, because my thoughts and my emotions are all over the place and they're not in line with what I know to be true. The don't be anxious, the Bible tells you a lot, and rejoice always. I've probably struggled to do both of those things, or not to be anxious and to rejoice a lot lately. And my brain is still recovering, of course, and bearing the consequences of the trauma. So that plays into all of those sort of struggles and things as well. And the difficulties just seem to keep coming, and there's no real end in sight. And the last thing I would say, I don't want to kind of just say that it's all hard, but what I think hopefully what's coming across, Emily, is that it is hard. There are struggles and challenges, and just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean everything's okay. Just because I know I'm going to go and be with my Lord one day, which I do, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but what I'm saying is that doesn't make it all go away or make it all okay. Trauma brings new difficulties as well. It exposes and magnifies what's already there. So it's not just, it brings a load of new stuff you've got to deal with, but also we all know that we've got things we struggle with, we've got weaknesses, and what trauma does is it then brings those out, and it quite often it can bring them out in big ways. So for me, anxiety, we've talked about that before, how anxiety is something for me. And also at times I don't have a very good self-image or like myself very much. And I've struggled a lot with blaming myself for what happened. So all of those are ways that I've found life to be quite hard.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you so much for your honesty. It's really important that we remember, isn't it, that just because we're Christians doesn't mean life is going to be wonderful and perfect, and things are still hard. But on those hard days, on those tough days, during those tough times, what are the things that have made a difference?
Okay, so there's quite a few things that have made a big difference. I think it's really important to me to have a voice from outside my head. So that means people calling me or having video calls with folks. It means just making sure that I'm keeping in touch with things that are not in here with me, if I can put it that way. That means also, it means spending time with the Lord and in his word, because I need to hear not just that stuff that's going on inside my head. I need to hear other voices. So a voice from outside my head. I think one of the things I tried to do from very early on was to keep the big picture in view. The way that I am, it's very easy for me to get very bogged down in today's problems. There's a bigger picture. I need to remember where I've come from. If I go back to December 2019, what the situation I was in then, and where I am now. So that's part of the big picture, but also where I'm going to be and where I know I'm going to be. That's part of the big picture. So it's not all about just today. Yes, today's difficult and it will have its struggles, but I need to keep the big picture in view. So that's been important to me. One of the other things that's been really important and helpful is to search for and acknowledge the good things that are happening. Again, it's I'm a little bit of a kind of glass half empty person, so I'm likely to see the difficulties and negatives. But at the same time, I decided again quite early on that I would see the good things that are happening, because I know that there will be. You have to look for them. If you look for them, you can acknowledge them and then be thankful for them. And then I think the last thing I would say on that, Emily, is just what you mentioned before about being honest. It's been really important for me to be honest with myself, but honest with the Lord as well. That's so important. He knows my life. He knows what's in my head. and I can't hide things from him. Yeah, it feels a bit uncomfortable sometimes with this thoughts and ways that you're feeling, but I think honesty and being honest with myself, with him, and with other people is really important.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's good to hear that there are things that make a difference on those tough
For
days.
sure.
That's great. And so what are some things that you've learned, or maybe you're still learning, because we're learning all the time, aren't we, that you'd love to maybe share with others, or perhaps you'd wish you'd known maybe a year ago?
Yeah. Yeah, there is quite a lot that I mean, I said before, I don't understand what's kind of happening to me, but I do see that I'm learning things. So it's not all negative. There are kind of good things to learn. So first thing I would say is that it's become quite clear to me, life, it's not all about me. Yeah, we kind of get very involved with our own lives and what's happening. But I think I've realized there is a lot of other people going, I'm not alone in having difficult times and going through struggles. So I think those things, are kind of quite important to remember. And I think that, that's going to become clear to me. It's not all about me. Life is all about all of us, and it's about God and his plans and purposes. I think suffering and hardship is to be expected. It's the standard for this world. It's a broken world, and this is the reality of living in a broken world. And I think that maybe I haven't experienced something quite as bad as this before, but I think this has kind of brought that reality home to me. And in fact, I think the suffering and hardship, it's one of the primary means that God uses to advance his purposes in us. So he's looking to restore his image in us, and he's in his perfect wisdom and ways of doing things, he's decided this is the way that it's going to happen. Doesn't make it okay or all fine. In fact, there's a profound clash here, because you've got difficulties in life, suffering, hardship that's real, and it hurts, and it's difficult to handle. But you've got a God who is working out his purposes. So you've got something very bad and something very good. You're not going to be able to handle that easily or quickly. But it's the reality of the situation. It's the way that God has decided that it is. And again, I think I've learned that in fresh ways now. I can't control my life anywhere near what I thought I could. I went out one night in December 2019 and didn't make it home. And reality is I was very close to never coming back to this house again. So we think that we can control our lives, and we think if we just control our lives the way that we want them, everything will be fine. We can't, and it wouldn't. So I think that's become very clear to me. I've been taken to places I didn't want to go to and would never have chosen for myself. I can't control my life the way that I thought I could and would like to, or think that I could, but that's the reality of it. And to be honest, again, being honest, I'm a bit of a mess, really. I'm weak, I'm broken, I'm pretty helpless at times, and I've got my own sinfulness to deal with. But that's the reality of it. And in a way, that's okay, because I belong to Jesus, and if I'm a mess, I'm his mess. And because I'm like that, just makes me the sort of person that he came for. So again, I'm okay with that in a sense, that this is the kind of the reality of it. And in a way, that what's happened to me has actually shown me the weakness and brokenness that was already there. It's exposed it in ways maybe I didn't see it before. And I don't see that as a bad thing. That kind of, the kind of delusion that we have in life that, I've got this, it's all okay, we'll sort this out. No. There's something in all of us that is very weak, very broken, that needs help. And I can see that much more clearly now. So I think that's some of the things that I've learned, and I'm still learning, and that hopefully might help people as well to understand, and to maybe in their struggles and situations as well.
Thank you, Gary. Certainly hearing you talk about weakness and brokenness, but that actually Jesus is the one who came for weak and broken people. is a real encouragement to me. So thank you ever so much. I guess we want to keep encouraging our church family, don't we? We want to walk alongside each other as we go through tough times. We're all going through tough times right now in particular, but also we go through tough times generally. Are there things that people have done, perhaps particularly church family, but maybe other people as well, that have really made a difference as you've gone through hard times?
So I've already kind of mentioned a little bit about people just loving and caring for me. You know, there's been things, you know, where people have just called me, you know, out of the blue and just sort of said, "How are you doing?" That's been great. Some people have brought me meals round, and you know, one friend brought a cake. So things like that have been great. So little practical things like that really make a big difference. And I think if I could say the one thing that I think has made the biggest difference to me, and again, this might be me personally, but I can only talk about me personally, is people have been interested in me and they've listened to me without trying to fix things. I know that we want to make people feel better, and it's right to want to try and help people out. But what I've found really helpful is people who have just been interested in my story, and they've sat with me, they've listened to me, and they've entered into my world for a little while. They've wanted to be with me where I am. And I can't tell you how great that is.
That's wonderful.
I think that's made the biggest difference to me, because yes, we need to remember some of the truths that we have in the Bible. And, you know, I've become, you know, I've spent a lot of time in hearing what God has to say about this. But at the same time, there's a reality to this. I hope that's coming through, that is hard and difficult. And when people have sat with me in that situation and listened to my experiences and listened to what life's like for me, they've entered into that with me. And that's great. That's made a big difference to me.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear that people have entered in to your experiences with you. That's part of what it means to be church family to one another, isn't it? To love,
sure, yeah,
love each
definitely.
other well. Gary, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to hear your honesty. It's been wonderful to hear your thoughts. I really appreciate you being able to join us today. So thank you.
Thanks, Emily. I've enjoyed it too. I think, as you probably know, I don't mind talking about things. It helps me in many ways. And, you know, if this can be helpful to other folks as well, then that would be something that I've certainly prayed for. And it would be great if the Lord would use this thing. That it wouldn't be just something that is a waste. It would be something that there is. I've already seen that it's not that. There are good things, but if you can do more with it, then that would be great.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, thank you ever so much for joining us, Gary. Thank you, all of you at home, for joining us this morning. If any of what Gary has said has been helpful for you, or if you want to chat about it more, do feel free to get in touch with me and we can talk about it together. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.